Welcome back everybody, and this is part 6 in the tutorial series of Ferrus Manus. In this clip I will paint the non-metallic metal skin on his hands. So first of all, I just want to say that I could have gone the true metallic route instead on his arms, but to sort of blend in with the skin that I already painted, I think it would look better with some non-metallic metal instead. Though I made it a little bit more difficult for me than I had to, since I was aiming for a mid-advanced paint job. The effects not to be like an expert level or something like that. I sort of shot myself in the foot there, since that just demanded extra work to sort of dumb it down, when I could have just gone all the way instead. But it is what it is, and I think this is great for those of you who are not so familiar with non-metallic metals. It's pretty easy to understand my procedure, how I did this. So even if I made it difficult for myself, I think there's still a lot to learn from this one. But in the future I will more likely aim the non-metallic metals for more expert videos instead of the advanced ones, since in the advanced ones it just gets difficult to sort of make a medium job of it. So first off, I'm base coating the hands, and I'm also going to glaze up the arms so that the gray gives a blend into the skin. So I'm slowly gonna build this up with several thin layers of the mixture of sea green and incubi darkness. I think it was dark sea green, I can't remember. I will put the paints at the start of the video anyway, so you know which one I used. So this can take some time, but have a hair dryer and dry up the paint in between brush strokes if you can't wait for it to dry itself, and just be patient and build it up with several layers, and you get a nice transition between the skin and the metals. Now we're gonna start slowly building up the features on the muscles with some French Mirage blue. And you can see now when the transitions have dried on his arms that the transition between skin and metal went pretty great. And that's also how you paint like a shaved beard on a face as well, with very very thin layers of gray to build up the intensity of the shaved hairs on the faces. Can show that in other tutorials as well, but one thing at a time. So I'm going to define all the fingers and the veins and muscles that's present on the arms with this layer here. and a lot of glaze in this as well to make a good transition between them. So let's continue build up the features on the non-metallic metal skin with some pale blue-gray, and I'll add a little bit of the emerged blue to this to keep a little bit of the tone left in there. So with this I will start a medium highlight on all the surfaces and build up on the bigger surfaces, sort of prepare for the next layers that we're going to make as well. And also we're going to shade the surfaces a little bit later on as well, since when you're painting non-metallic metals you need a good contrast between dark and light, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you are painting from black to white, but sort of a decent contrast is always needed. And that could also be going from a red paint to a sort of a blue paint, because that's a pretty great contrast, and you don't even have to make a big difference in light and dark there, since the colors are so different, so they will contrast pretty great with each other. So yeah, slowly building up here and making good transitions for light reflections and the surfaces where light hits more than others. So now we're going to shade down in the recessed areas. On parts we want to be more darker to increase the light intensity of some of the areas on the non-metallic metal skin. So some incubi darkness that we used in our base coat, and mix with a little bit of black to make it a little bit more darker. I tend to use a little bit of black in many of the paints that I shade with, since I think I get a greater result when doing that. Sort of intensifies the color, but still keeps it. So carefully going to paint this on into all the recessed areas and shade it up or down from a more lighter surface depending on where I've applied it. As you can see on the fingers when I'm painting those, the light tends to go down to the knuckles and the mid bone, so I will shade upwards from there to show that the light hits the lower parts of the fingers in each section. That is also something I've done with the thumbs as well. So next up I'm going to paint with some Mojave white. Can't really pronounce that name, but I will add it to the color list. And what I found out when using this paint was that it was a bit too transparent. It didn't give the kick to the surfaces that I wanted. So I later used some ice yellow, and that went pretty great. But I later found out that I could just glaze down ivory and paint that in thin layers and then build it up towards the intensity that I wanted. Since I had to sort of glaze down the Mojave white and ice yellow again. So if you are feeling secure on your brush strokes and brush control, you can go the ivory way instead, but I will show the longer painting part instead here, since that's what I got on camera. The other one I unfortunately didn't get on camera. But I hope you still can learn something from this. I still got the result that I kind of wanted, so no harm there in the end. I'm gonna glaze it down with some mirage blue, and just to even out the Mojave white a little bit. I didn't quite like the edges of the paint that occurred when I applied it to the model. So now I'm gonna start finalizing the highlights and light points with the ivory. And it's going to be done with a very glazed down ivory, and then a more thicker ivory to do the light points. So the last shade will be a mixture of Rhine oxide and our previous shade mixture of Incubi Darkness and the black. And the Rhine oxide will really shine through here and make the final piece into the non-metallic metal effect and get that contrast that I was speaking of earlier. And the reason why it contrasts so well is because the Rhine oxide is a bit reddish, purplish in its tones, and the metal paints overall are blue, so they contrast really well with each other. So that is something you can think about when you are painting some, say, you're painting blue armor on a Space Marine or a Chaos Marine or something like that, or any other type of miniature you can think of, and you want a great shadow to the mini, then you can just apply some browns that are a bit reddish and dark, and you will get a very quick and good contrast. So when shading blues, don't use darker blues, use some darker reds and browns instead, or even some red greens. Well, they will be brown of course, but a mixture of those can go pretty well as well. And then lastly, I will just frame in and fix up all the highlights that might have got a little bit of shade to them, or that are missing some defining highlights for the features on the details. For say like fingers, I've probably missed some of the highlights there to frame them in some more and make them match overall with the previous paintwork of the miniature. So I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial of the non-metallic metal skin. I hope you learned something from it, even though there was a little bit of a mess up in the middle. But I hope you can find it useful anyway, and I will see you in the next one where I'll paint the face for Ferrus Manus.